If you're a real estate leader, entrepreneur, or someone who's ever wondered how to scale your business while keeping your sanity, this episode is about to unlock some serious value for you. Today's guest, Andrew Becker, is the CEO and co founder of Billions, a groundbreaking platform that is helping real estate teams scale smarter, faster, and more efficiently. Andrew didn't just stumble into success, he built it from ground up. From his early days into the Air Force to creating systems that streamline chaos into clarity, Andrew has mastered what it takes to lead high performing teams. He also is the host of Team Lead Talks, where he sits down with the top leaders in the industry to share actionable insights on building, scaling, and sustaining winning teams. In this episode, we're diving into the exact strategies that he used to create Billions, the mindset shift that transformed his journey, and the lessons you can take to level up your business right now. If you ever felt overwhelmed by processes, systems, or the consistent grind, or maybe not knowing what to do, or trying to do it everything yourself, stick around. I think Andrew's insights might just change that way you work and think. So, welcome to the show, Andrew. I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
And I love the real estate because we will both speak the same language. I'm really happy when I speak real estate stuff. But let's start at the beginning. Like, what inspired you to get into real estate, and what was that like defining moment when you knew that real estate was your path?
Sure. It was actually kind of a funny story. So this was back in like 2013. I was actually a civilian in the Air Force, worked at the Pentagon, and I had a roommate who happened to be my best friend from middle school. So we've known each other for like 25 plus years. And it was around the time where HGTV, the TV channel, was coming out with like House Hunters and Flipper Flop and different shows like that. And we got like really into it for whatever reason. And at the time I was in the government, he was in private finance, and we both kind of had that entrepreneurial spirit. In college, we both ran a painting company during the summers when we returned home from school, and we always wanted to work together. So we started kind of brainstorming different business ideas, from like a chicken sandwich at 3 a.m. in the morning when the bars get out of DC. But then we were like, wait a second, real estate seems kind of cool. We like those shows. Why don't we get into real estate? So we both got our licenses in 2013, attached them to KW, and the rest was history.
Beautiful. How did, like, I think it's fascinating. You go from watching a show that inspires you to that entrepreneurial mindset. How was it from studying like international studies to now leading Billions? Like, where did that name come from? And what's like, why are you doing that?
Yeah, so this is kind of like skipping ahead to where we are now. But I ran and operated that real estate team from 2013 to about 2018, 19. So almost a better part of a decade. And from what we needed to run and operate our team, and we did a lot of volume, we had a lot of leads coming in, we're setting a lot of appointments, a lot of transactions, documents, deadlines, you name it. As I was the COO on the team, so I was in charge of operations, which included the tech stack, right? So what are we using? What software tools are we using? And we were on everything. I won't name drop, but we were on all the major, CRMs out there in the real estate world. But once we needed the softwares to do something above and beyond what they were capable of, that just meant getting Zapier, the bridge integrator, and another tool and another tool and another tool. And it just became really hard to maintain, stressful when things broke and didn't like talk to each other the right way. And it was a pain in the ass, right? And it was expensive. There was a lot of different things. So we'd always hit some, glass ceiling around functionality of the platforms we were on. Eventually, after spending more money than I'll admit on this show, we said, how can we do this better? And we set out to build something ourselves, like a lot of companies do, right? They didn't see someone solve it, so they went out, built it ourselves. That's kind of what we did. So we had our Billions prototype. and it kind of just happened by accident. But we were a part of different masterminds where we would go to North Carolina at some beach, stand up on stage and talk about our business and show our numbers and our software. And my buddies and colleagues in the audience were like, what is that? How did you get that number? How did you get that data point? And kind of Billions started from there. So we built it for ourselves primarily. And then I've been doing Billions specifically for the last few years now. I'm not in real estate sales anymore, but all my knowledge and all the little nuances of running and operating a high volume, high transaction team are built into Billions. And now we offer that as, a way to expedite getting that platform if you run and operate a real estate team. And one really cool thing about how we did it is we did retail and wholesale. So we built in not only a retail, so buyers and listings, but also wholesale operations as well, all in one platform. So the key for us was how can we stay in one platform or one source of record, and that's what Billions became.
So let's go back, and truly impressive, but let's go back to the early experiences. What was the problem? What happened? What led you to think, okay, I need to do this myself?
Honestly, software, the disparate, segregated software was out there, right? But we needed a CRM for lead management. We needed an outreach tool for automation. We needed a way to run and operate our workflows in the same predictable, repeatable way. We needed data and analytics. We needed commission management, document management. So we got all these separate softwares. And like I said before, it was just really hard to maintain all those softwares. Then a new one came out. Well, should we switch to that one? It was always kind of like shiny object syndrome, chasing what we needed. But we needed it and wanted technology to be able to help us not have to focus on technology and focus on clients and prospecting and revenue generating activities versus, like, for an example, we set a lot of appointments. When you set a lot of appointments on a team, you have to remember to set the appointment, give the appointment to someone, right? Bring them up to speed, brief them on it. Then they have to prepare for the appointment. Then they go on the appointment. And then as a team leader, I had to remember that I gave you the appointment and what happened on the appointment, but you didn't update your notes. So we built that automation in to do that stuff for me. So instead of me having to remember the 30 appointments that happened the last 2 weeks, our software would say, hey, Ahmad went on an appointment 2 weeks ago and he never submitted his post-appointment notes. A report would tell me. A report would get emailed to me that night saying you didn't submit it. And our team, if you didn't submit a post-appointment outcome report, then you don't get another appointment. So just little things like that weren't out there in the world or where, software available to us at the time. So we built that. And then I thought to myself, well, where else are we having problems? Date management. I could put property A under contract and there's 11 dates we need to keep track of. Property B has 15 dates. Well, that was a manual process of someone saying all these 11 dates need to go on the calendar, but who needs to get invited to each one? Then this one had 15, and before you know it, there was 100 dates. So we built in something called reminders, where you tell the system on the front end, hey, if this date is populated, put it on Andrew's calendar and Ahmad's calendar automatically. All you do is input the date once, hit submit, and it goes to our calendars and reminds us like 3 days before or 7 days before. So it's just little things like that were a time suck, having to worry about someone on the team manually doing that, where I said, where can technology help me do the little low-hanging fruit type of things that would really free up our time to focus on client revenue generating activities?
So really interesting because you went from leading teams and then realizing that leadership, there was a lot of perhaps low hanging fruit, like you just mentioned, of technology to solve repetitive tasks and a high volume amount of tasks that as a leader, you're like, okay, how can I can do it for a year, I can do it for two, but how can I translate this to other people, right? It was more like, how do I scale from this?
Yeah, I mean, the goal, Ahmad, is scaling, growth and scaling, right? You cannot grow and scale if you do not have standard operating procedures. What we call in our company, we call them playbooks, right? So doing the same thing, albeit it might be boring, but the same thing repeatedly and predictably is how you grow and scale. Because then I could show you, if you come into our system and say, hey, how do I set an appointment? And I'm like, here's the one thing you do to set an appointment. Click this button, fill in these fields, hit save. That's how you do it. That's how you grow and scale. Then I can have a second appointment setter, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and I just show them that, and that's all you need to know how to do. If you do not have SOPs or standard operating procedures, playbooks, whatever you call them, then I'm explaining to you one off, and it's different. You do it 3 different ways. Then the next appointment setter does it his or her different way. And now when something breaks, there's no audit capability, right? Because I'm like,
Right.
well, Ahmad, how did you do this? You're like, well, I moved the stage to here. I put this here. Did you put it on the calendar? Oh, no, I forgot. Okay, well, how can we take that off your plate? And that's how we do it in Billions. It's just a standardized workflow. It's the same thing every time to progress a lead. But when you set an appointment, it automatically updates it for you to appointment. It automatically adds it to the calendar, automatically sends an email to the leadership team saying, new appointment set tomorrow at 9 p.m. We read the notes, we listen to the calls, we see the emails, then we assign it to a team. That's how you repeatedly do the same thing over and over, by doing the same thing the same way each and every time. And we built that not just for appointments, but from the time someone says, hey, I'm interested, all the way through a closed lead. It acts the same way, just the same thing again and again and again.
Beautiful. And obviously, you didn't start where you are. You definitely had a transition, and you went from, like you said, from leadership to then how do you scale this and how do you standardize this, which is, I see a lot of entrepreneurs, and I see the difference between those who are able to sell their business, those who are able to scale their business. It comes down to standardization. Like, it's if there is one trick in life, one I'm definitely subscribed to.
I seriously think that is 100% the only way to grow and scale is standardization. So I'm an avid reader. I read business books, finance books, and autobiographies all the time, and I'm constantly following different CEOs or leaders on like social media, and that is truly the one thing that most have in common. How did you go from 0 to a million to 10 million to 100 million, whatever it was? And the most common theme from my research and just from hearing from different people is we had systems and processes in place, down to here's how you make a cup of coffee. Because as silly as it sounds, you have to show that to someone when they're new in your company, right? Well, what if you didn't have to? What if you never had to worry about that? That's a very basic, kind of funny SOP to have, but it's a necessary one, all the way to complex ones around marketing playbooks and sales playbooks and things like that. But that was the one common theme. Everyone said you grow and scale with systems, and you need people to come in to a system and know exactly what to do and how to do it on their own.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And you mentioned something that I love learning. I know our listeners always, and they're always like, okay, what book? You just mentioned avid reader, follow people. Who were those like mentors or books that made pivotal moments that profoundly impacted the way you think today?
I think I have my list of favorites. I'll start with an autobiography. Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, The Ride of a Lifetime. That's his book. I've read it a few times now. I learned a lot from him to see just how a CEO at that level, Disney, very, world famous type of company, like what's his thought process? How does he handle when things happen? The book opens with that tragedy that happened when the little child was unfortunately killed by the alligator in Disney World, and I think it was in Orlando. And he talks through his thought process and how he handled that serious, of a situation, all the way to the acquisition of Pixar from Steve Jobs at Apple. It's just very insightful. So that was one of, if not my favorite autobiography that I've ever read. From a business standpoint, there's a few that really stand out, though. There's Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, very big in the SaaS world. He actually also just came out with a book that I've read a few times already called Software as a Science, where he walks you through how to build a SaaS company, which is what Billions is. And then I recently just finished a few days ago, Atomic Habits by James Clear. And I'm learning, I didn't even know what I didn't know before that. I thought I had a very organized life and I was doing the right things the right way. And then I learned habit stacking, for example, and it completely changed my morning routine from reading that book. So I think those are like the top four books that I read over and over and over. And then Scalable. I forget who reads that or who wrote that book, but Scalable is a company, is a book on how to scale and grow a company. And the main themes in there are consistency, procedures, systems, meeting cadences and things like that. So those are my probably top five.
Amazing, amazing. Have you read E-Myth?
I have eMyth and I'm aware of it. I have like 300 books. My wife would kill me or wants to kill me because of this, but Amazon comes almost every other day with a new book. I catalog everything in my book library and I take notes on the ones that I read so I can share it with the team and go back and read them later, kind of like a cliff note. But I have so many books I want to read, but I have not read that one.
I think it's sort of describing what you're saying. It's if you don't, it's sort of like building your business as a franchise model where everything has a standard procedure, it works, it's like you went all the way down to how to make a coffee because when you write that, you dedicate time once. There's no like, there's a new intern, so now we need to teach them how to do coffee again. It's just like, here's the procedures, read it. This is how we want things done. And then you can, like you said, I like the word audit. It's not something that a lot of entrepreneurs do. It's always go, go, go time, next time, next time, next time. It sometimes feels like you don't go back and be like, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? It's always like, how do I keep this thing going? And if you don't have that audit, you don't have a measuring stick. You don't know if you did well, if you're going away from your goals or closer to them. So
There's no
definitely
way
valuable.
to improve either, right? There's no way to figure out what happened, but then there's no way to improve. And I'll mention one thing from the Buy Back Your Time book that the author says. He says getting something 80% done by someone else is 100% awesome. So if I don't have to sit there and handhold you to do a certain task, and you can critically think, you read through the playbook and critically think of how to, get the task assigned to you and do it on your own, that is an amazing feeling as a business owner, right? So you have to trust your people, and this kind of gets into like right person, right seat type of thing. Like they have to be qualified enough. But that critical aspect of, hey, Ahmad, I need you to do ABC. Here's the playbook for it. You should be able to read and articulate what that is, back to me what that is and how you're planning to do it to take it from 80 to completed. But the action is there, right? And and have a really good idea without me being like, okay, let's sit down and go over this for 3 hours. That's 3 hours of deep work that I missed, right? The also a really beneficial part of our playbooks is we have a playbook library divided by department. So we have sales, marketing, onboarding for billions, those kind of things. And each time we have a task, our team is, the culture in our team is, do we have a playbook for that yet? And if we don't, we put one together and we say the blank playbook. And then we start throwing whatever it is into that playbook. It's a live document in our Google workspace that everybody has access to. So you're not worrying about version control or anything. And if you need to know how to do something, you go to the library and say, hey, this is a marketing initiative. I need to know how to post on social media. Go to the social media playbook, you click on it, the Word doc opens up, and you have a playbook right in front of you. There's an owner and last modified date for the most part. It allows you to get what you need and then tweak it if you need to, and you update the last modified date. And you don't have to do anything other than that. So it's a very, very organized way to kind of keep our team involved and up to speed on how we operate.
This is super insightful. It's entrepreneurship at the next level for sure. I feel that you are very in control, very much procedure based, very thoughtful with how you do things. Tell us, were there any major setbacks or something that you had to break through that made you become more procedure oriented, or was this from like a previous experience?
No, I mean, honestly, I think I just got tired of doing the same thing. like we're reinventing the wheel each and every time. One example, when I was on my sales team, the real estate sales team, is when a post outcome would happen, like a post appointment outcome. We didn't have procedures, we didn't have systems, we didn't have a way to collect the outcome from the agent in the field. And they would pick up the phone and call me, or pick up the phone and call Dan, or call Dan first and then call me and verbally tell us what happened. But there is no notes, there is no collection of that. And then they would have to remember to go into our platform at the time to update everything. And it just got sickening because it was like every appointment was like a 4-hour ordeal. Like at the end of the week, if we added up all the time that we spent just knowing or hearing from you as an agent on our team what happened on the appointment. Now, you know what we do? They have a mobile app on their phone for Billions. They go to the, John Smith appointment. They click on post appointment form, pops open fields. They fill in the fields and hit submit. And I get an email. And I'll read the email if I want to, right? The email is also, and the information is stored in the lead profile. So then I can go in later and read it. So now the agent isn't calling me, then calling Dan, then calling someone else, and then forgetting to put in the notes. He's just putting in the notes in his or her car, hitting save, and then going to the next appointment. So it was like that sickening, inefficient feeling of, why are we having the same conversation over and over and over? It's the same outcome every time. Like, if you didn't sign it, follow up and do this, follow up and do that, write them a thank you card, do this, do that. Now, when someone either says they signed it, it triggers the listing team to go and do tasks A, B, C, D, E, send the contract here, order the photos there. The same thing every single time. If they don't sign it, it triggers them to follow up and have a plan in place, those kind of things. So there's a lot of examples or scenarios that I could give you, but it was just things like that. Ahmad, why do we constantly talk about the best way to post on social media? Just come up with a playbook and then tweak it if we need to. But now we're not meeting every day for an hour talking about our, branding, our color scheme, things like that just, you do it once, you create a playbook, and then you tweak and iterate as you go.
But I think you're giving a master class of how to do things, and it brings to mind the difference between being lucky and being successful. Some people, the difference between, and then lucky is like, okay, you got the sale once, or one time you sold, you had a good streak, every planet aligned, you had good health,
Yeah.
you had no family problems, you didn't have any friend problems, you were crushing it, and that lasted a season, and then the next season it tanked. Well, the difference between tanking and luck is the system in place. I'm very big on the system, and what we do at my company, we try to be the most systematic possible as well, because I think that's the only way that we can assess and grow and see more and know where we know our weaknesses and know our strengths.
Right.
But definitely, I'm learning from you, and I like the way of thought. Let's go back to the name Billions. It alludes to something very big, but what inspired you to co-found Billions and this name?
Yeah, really good questions. Well, let me ask you a question. Have you seen the movie The Social Network
Yes.
about Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg? So there's a scene in that movie where they're out to dinner with Sean Parker, the founder of Napster, and he makes that comment, $1 million isn't cool anymore. Do you know what is? $1 billion. And when we were kind of thinking about the names for our company, we came up with, I don't even know, hundreds of different options that we all kind of threw at a whiteboard. But it was also around the time where, the big TV show agents were starting to do billions of dollars in volume every single year, which was almost like unheard of. I get like some people were doing it, but it was less publicly, knowledgeable of that happening. So when we were thinking about that, we wanted to make it like, if you get a system like this is like the big leagues, right? You can make or close billions of dollars in revenue in a real estate transaction season, right? So year after year. So we just thought it was a cool name. I also like the Showtime TV show Billions about, the finance show. So it kind of just worked. We workshopped it and talked to different people, and they're like, "Yeah, that sounds pretty cool." I mean, we could have called it follow up something, commission some, that kind of stuff. But we also wanted to be a little bit outside of the box there. It wasn't like a feature or, a process type of name. It was like a grandiose feeling of success.
Yeah. And I like your big thought. It just makes you think big. It makes you think that this is the big leagues. This is how you get there.
Yeah, I mean, if
Well,
you think in the millions, you'll do millions.
or
You
thousands.
can, yeah, or thousands. If you're like, I want to close one deal a year, there's a pretty good chance you can do one deal a year. If you say I want to close 100 deals a year, you can. If you want to close 1,000 deals a year, you can. It's that mindset mentality. So why limit yourself? That was kind of the thinking behind this as well.
It absolutely translates and comes through. When you think about systems and you think about your name and thinking big, how do you balance that with like the entrepreneurial spirit? Because now that I see, obviously I see the light, I see, okay, this works, proven systems, you can integrate this to your company and your team and you can become bigger and bigger. But what happens, or how do you balance like, okay, we've always done it this way, but there's a better way to do it?
Trial and error, I think, is the best way to kind of answer that question. There's always a bigger, better way to do anything, I believe, but we tweak. We do it one way, and it could be a way we think is we're the smartest people, it makes the most sense, and then we actually put it into practice and we're like, what the hell were we thinking? This went the complete opposite way. So we're constantly, and for the most part, I did that over the 10-year span of the operations piece, right? So this is a 10-year of been there, done that kind of platform where, hey, we tried to do it one way through piecing other softwares together, but here's why that didn't work, or why it was stressful, or why it was keeping me up at night. And then we did it this way, and it's been working out pretty great so far, but we're constantly modifying and trying to make things better all the time. I think that's the entrepreneurial part. So we're constantly getting more features and, partners built into Billions. That's another piece of that puzzle for like the Billions platform, Ahmad, is an analogy I really like to use is like, Ahmad, you could go start a burger joint if you really wanted to. You could source the meat, find the land, build the building, get the architect, figure out the logo, the name, the colors, the kitchen setup, POS systems, or you could go franchise a McDonald's or a Five Guys. Doing that latter is kind of what Billions is for the team model. You can go out and do that, right? And a lot of people are successful and a lot of people do it. But for the teams that are like, hey, this is really hard, we haven't quite been able to make it work, or the smaller teams with ambitions of growing, they come to us because we have that 95% solution, and then they can our platform is built on top of Salesforce, so it's number one largest CRM company in the entire world. That means a lot of different things, but for us it's that customization part that really, if you want to, the sky is the limit with where you could take a system like Billions. But you don't have to change anything. The framework and the architecture is there for a team model, and it'll spit out everything you need to know to run and operate your team very, very efficiently to grow and scale and ultimately increase your revenue line. But we give it to our customers and they say, hey, it's really cool, but what if it could do A, B, and C? And then we help our customers, visions become a reality. And now they found another efficiency to save them even more time and grow their company even more because of it. So that's kind of the entrepreneurial spirit behind this whole endeavor here.
I really like how you put the burger joint with the real estate team because it really clarifies what you do. Can you share a story of a specific maybe team or client or leader that you've helped scale with Billions, and what made that transformation successful?
Yeah, I'll talk about a company that started with, I think, 14 people. They were in one market. They're now up to 66 people on their team, I believe, and they're in 4 different markets. But that's the power of this kind of platform and the power of having both the retail and the wholesale component. So just kind of backing up real quick, you can get Billions with both retail and wholesale, or you can get it with retail only or wholesale only. But the cool part, Ahmad, is if I'm a retail only today with ambitions of becoming a wholesaler tomorrow, and when I make that decision to add a line, a revenue line, I don't have to go out and build the wholesale component or find a wholesale software that works. You call us and you're like, hey, can you enable the wholesale component of Billions? Within 24 hours, you have it. And now you just have a different path to go down, right? You have a buyer path, a listing path, and a wholesale path, like that. And now you're operating a wholesale operation, spitting out reports for your wholesale operation. So you're kind of seeing where you need to be. And that's what allowed this particular company and customer of ours to grow, because they didn't have to worry about the tech. And it's very scalable. Like, we have a team in Tennessee. They have about 100 people on their team, and they do close to 1,000 deals a year. So it's capable of handling that because of the automation that we spoke about before, right? The thing is, here's another analogy that I really like. Do you invest in retirement?
Yeah.
Do you write a paper check to your retirement fund every single month and have to remember to cash it or
No.
put it? You probably set it up once and forgot it, right? You said, hey, bank account, every week or whatever your cadence is, take $100 and put it into the S&P 500 Roth IRA that I have. That's Billions. So you say, hey, every time this happens, do this. You set it up on the front end in our feature called Billions Connect, kind of the engine that runs all this automation. You set it up. The framework is there. You're just plugging in your team and who you want and when you want it. But you set it up. And then once you're progressing the leads, like I explained before, you set an appointment, you fill out an appointment form. All the automation, like the deposit going into your Roth IRA retirement account, same concept. You hit save, triggers 8 different things to happen the way you told it to happen. That's the concept behind this. And that's where you really save. If you really took an audit of your real estate team life, pre a kind of system like this, not just Billions, like a system that has this level of automation and thought built into it, and say, hey, how much time am I spending putting, I don't know, pick one, dates on a calendar, and literally log it. Say at 11 a.m. I started writing dates on Monday. Took me 20 minutes to do like 8 contracts. 1 p.m. it took me this amount of time. Track that for 2 weeks. See how many hours that equates to. Multiply it by 52 weeks and you'll get to some number that's like, I spent 35 days putting dates on calendars. Well, cool. Go into Billions, spend 20 minutes saying, if this date is populated, put it on Ahmad's calendar. If that date is populated, put it on Andrew and Ahmad's calendar. If this date, and so on and so forth. Then when you submit the listing sign form, dates, calendar, boom, done. Just like that, automatically. And you get an email reminder 7 days before saying, hey, Ahmad, 123 Main Street agreement is about to expire. Are you aware of this? Click right here to open it up. And now you're in it, but you're not having to remember any of that. So those little time savers is what the benefit of an automated platform can do for you.
I absolutely see it. It's the how do you professionalize everything to the degree that you only do what really matters. How do you address resistance to change when implementing your systems?
It's tough because everyone has their own way of doing it, and there's no one size fits all answer to this. My best explanation, though, is we show people how to do it once, and it's the same thing every time, so they don't have to remember. And not having to remember is a mental kind of thing that you're like, oh man, I don't want to have to remember every time a property closes to do 20 things. Well, Ahmad, what if I told you when a property closes, all you have to do is click on the close listing form. A window will pop up and it will say, when did it close? How much did it close for? What are the payouts? You fill it in and you hit save. That's all you have to remember what to do for your job. Do you want to do it, option A and have to remember to do everything on your own each and every time? And keep in mind, you're closing 10 deals a month or 20 deals a month or 2 deals a month, whatever it is. Or do you want to just say, hey, close, click a button, fill in something, click save, and my job is done. So there's a buy back your time mentality that will free you up to do other things, spend more time with your family, go on a walk. Peace of mind for the work-life balance is also something that it's very important to us. The other thing about Billions is there's a linear progression in a real estate transaction for the most part, right? A new lead comes in, you set an appointment, you sign it or you don't, it goes under contract or it doesn't, and it closes or it doesn't, right? There's fallout points at each of those stages. But for the most part in the United States, that's how it works. A new lead comes in all the way through close and everything in between. In Billions, every single phase change has a button that you click, kind of like on an iPhone. You want to send a text, you click on the text message. You want to, go to your browser, you click on the browser icon. Same concept here. You want to add a new lead, you click on the new lead. You want to set an appointment, you click on the appointment button. You want to say you just signed a buyer, you click on the buyer sign button. And you do that the same way every time. There is no way around moving a lead from A to B, B to C without clicking on the button. We took it out. We put blockers in place where if you were in our platform, Ahmad, and John Smith was a lead and you set an appointment, at the top you have a stage bar. It says, new uncontacted, attempted, contacted, appointment. The only way to get that appointment to update properly is to submit the appointment form. If you try to circumvent our process and click on appointment and click save, a red error message will come up and says, wait a second, Ahmad. The only way to update it to appointment is to fill out the appointment form. It's located right over there next to send email. Click on that, then it moves automatically for you. Not to mention, we have data and analytics. This is kind of a segue into a whole different topic of conversation here, but every single time you're submitting one of these progressive forms, right, 135 plus different reports, KPIs, and dashboards are updating in real time. So let's stay on the appointment example. I set an appointment. It's giving Andrew credit for setting another appointment, another Google PPC appointment. So I, as an appointment setter, have a quota of setting 2 appointments a day. I submit it +1 for the day, right? So you're reviewing performance on me as the appointment setter. And this is true for any position on the team, okay? Same thing for agents. I set the appointment, but Ahmad, you go on it. So I give it to you, you go on it, you sign it. You come back into Billions or do it on your phone and say, hey, listing signed button, click. When you submit that, our listing sign goes boom, +1. Ahmad, your conversion rate just went from 50% to 55%. So every little detail of knowing what lead sources are working, how many appointments from each one, leads, agreements, close, and revenue, plus Ahmad the person and Andrew the person. If I'm an appointment setter on the team and my salary is $5K a month, it'll tell you if I'm bringing in $15K a month. So it's a 3x return on me as a person, like a personnel team member. If you are getting $3,500 a month plus commission, it'll tell you proactively that Ahmad, the agent, has brought in $500,000 in revenue. So you're seeing this in real time as you're progressing the lead. And remember, there's only one way to progress it. So it's kind of that forced reporting put upon you, but you don't even realize it. But for leadership, you're seeing, direct mail closed $550,000 in revenue this quarter, this year, last year, whatever, without having to manually update anything. And I'll even go so far as when I was on the team, I would get these reports emailed to me every night. You can subscribe to reports. So when I was running operations, I was responsible for assigned appointments or appointments that weren't assigned and outcome, post-appointment outcome. So instead of having to go in and say, hey, let me look at this report, every night at 7, 8 o'clock at night, it got emailed to me. Said, hey, here's all the missing post-appointment reports from today. And then I could call you as the agent or Slack you or whatever and say, hey, Ahmad, you owe me 3 post-appointment reports from today. You're not getting another appointment until you fill them out. Or like, why didn't you fill them out? That kind of thing. So just things like that made my life easier by proactively spotlighting it for me and on my behalf.
I see that. And I love the analytics section because it definitely spark some competition, which is, if it's done healthy, it's a very powerful tool. And at the same time, the question was, how do you fight resistance? Well, this is really like, if you want to go to the higher leagues, what you discussed before, like you need to be working at this level. Like you cannot not do set the appointments. You cannot not write your notes after the call, because the person that's going to pick up your work does not have a clear handoff, or has to talk to you, and then you have like a broken phone syndrome. It's like, I don't know what they said. Maybe they said this, or are they ready to buy? They're not ready to buy. Are they looking for bigger, smaller? So whatever it is, it's really critical that information is passed this way. And I like the idea that there is I don't want to call it gamification, because it isn't, but it's really more engaging with the software, which is something that's been lacking.
We do have gamification. Didn't mean to cut you off, but there's a leaderboard dashboard that a lot of our customers put up in the office or share with the users. And it's like by week, by month, whatever, frequency. It's called the leaderboard. It's like how many appointments were set this month, and nobody wants to be on the bottom of that, right? So that's the competitive aspect of Billions as well, because we're automatically tracking how many appointments I set versus how many appointments you set, and it's in a dashboard. So I can log in and be like, first, 2 weeks of January, I've set 10 appointments, but Ahmad set 30. What the hell is he doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Why are you so successful? And I can use that to either go to you and say, hey, dude, help me, or go to leadership and say, can Ahmad teach a class on how he sets appointment? Like, what in the world is he doing to be doing 3 times the amount of, appointments? And then, of course, you can use it for training purposes as well. But accountability and metrics are what kind of drive the back end. And that's really our bread and butter at Billions. Yes, the process is one way to do things. So a lot of the benefits we just spent, talking about are there, and that's great. But ultimately, you need to know how to make really good data-driven decisions to run and operate a company. You cannot be shooting from the hip. You cannot be guessing. You cannot be thinking in your mind, oh, Zillow's working, or hey, this postcard's working. Just get the data. Figure out how to get the data automatically, and then that's when you're like, I'm looking at my data every week, every 2 weeks, every month, whatever you're comfortable with. But get to the what the hell went wrong sooner. Save money faster, know what's working sooner, put a fence around it, put more fuel in that fire, and that's how you go from a revenue that's kind of plateaued to like, the upward hockey stick, because you're figuring out who and what is working or not working in a very, very timely manner.
Exactly. What trends do you see that are shaping the real estate industry, but also your company, which is more like a SaaS, perhaps more software driven, that in the next 3 to 5 years that leaders could prepare for?
Well, I mean, the obvious one is AI, right? Like, where can AI come in and even, do more for you? There are a lot of platform providers out there that have AI embedded into their systems already. We are a little bit more cautious with that. We've heard good stories and we've heard horror stories of what AI has said or with certain leads, right? Or prospects or clients in their systems. I think there's going to be a lot of regulation around that as well. It's like kind of scary. You can get a call from someone now that you think is a person, but it's actually AI. So I feel like as more and I mean, all these FCC regulations coming out around like who can even call back a lead is starting to kind of shape the landscape of what one would be able to do with AI in the first place. But we're very cautious. I mean, being built on top of Salesforce also affords us the speed to AI capability, right? Because they're developing in tandem with their partners. So they come out with all these AI products very quick with billions of dollars behind the scenes in research and development, something that we're not able to do on our own. But we're very, very cautious because at the end of the day, we want to free up people's times to not have to do date management, document management, reporting. We want to free up people's times to talk to people, like human to human. We have some, I've heard of people, connecting their platforms with chatbots that will set an appointment for you. But that makes me personally, and to each his own here, but that makes me personally as a business owner extremely cautious and scared because you have no clue what this bot is telling them, right? You have no control over it. It's just a machine doing stuff. And ultimately, you train them, but it takes a long time to train. And you get all these like, oh, we're an appointment setting AI. Cool concept, but like, what if they do something wrong or really bad and that tarnishes your reputation? We're just not there. Like me personally, I'm just not there yet. As a product, we're not there yet. We want to work on doing what we do now, the best in the world, the best you can possibly do it to free up time to do the real interactions on their own. Of course, some of our customers do use AI, but we don't have anything built into our platform right now. But I think AI is going to be a topic for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, I like what you said, and I agree that you're automating to free up time to do the human work. You're doing machine work to, it's like you're already, what you do is already AI. It's just not Gen AI, which is, there's a big difference there. You're already automating everything that can be automated so the human can do what the human should do, which
But
is,
at a task level, man, like think of it this, like worst case scenario. I go all in on AI chatbots and AI appointment setters, AI phone callers that literally call people and have conversations. And I spend 200 grand doing it. And then in 2026, the government says no more AI to talk to people.
yeah,
And you're
that's
dead in the
dangerous.
water. You're going to be
Yeah.
dead in the water. And then you lose, like, that's a skill, right? Talking to people is an actual skill, especially in sales. So if you get complacent with an AI chatbot setting all of your appointments, eventually you're going to forget how to do it at a high level of skill. So a machine is doing it for you. Yeah, it's really cool. It's efficient. They work 2365. You don't have to pay them benefits and salaries and stuff. But what happens when the government shuts that down? We're seeing the government get very involved in lead gen initiatives right now, in texting people. You have to have, ways of opting out. You physically have to prove that they opted in. That's just the start of this. So, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not trying to act like I know government policy or anything, but what if you put all your eggs in the AI basket and then they come out and say, hey, for companies, you cannot use AI to do this? And sure, there'll be workarounds, there'll be ways maybe to, loopholes, but you're going to lose that skill, in my opinion, having a machine do it for you. And then, not to sound like a broken record, but you don't know what it's going to do or say ever, right? And there's always a chance that you get a real phone call from someone saying, someone at your company just did this. Were you aware of that? And you're like, oh my God, that was an AI chatbot. Like, is that worth your reputation? I don't know. Maybe for some people.
I see your point, and I think regulatory is always the biggest risk in any type of investment. Like when we look at any investment, it's what's the regulation? Because if you're talking about zoning, if you're talking about like these rules for lead generation, I'm also worried about the day that AI can talk to AI, because if you have an AI to set appointments, you have an AI that collects them, they might, it's sort of like there was no oversight into any of that, and that makes me a little bit, I don't want to say nervous, but I think there will be mistakes. There will be, and mistakes are costly in any industry. I
Yeah.
didn't Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the dust hasn't really settled on that, right? There's all these new AI companies coming out of the woodworks every day, but no one really knows, kind of like a medicine, like a vaccine or whatever. You don't really know until you really know. And it's dangerous. It's good, it's efficient, right? There's benefits, there's pros and cons to both. But what we try to focus on is like, what is what are things that we can do to give people peace of mind or time back that are never going to be regulated, period? Calendar management, document management, like those are just business operations that we built in that are we're never going to have to worry. I think the biggest thing that we would potentially worry about is like text messaging, right? So I'll give you an example. Mass texting is no longer legal. You cannot buy a list of 10,000 homeowners and mass blast text to 10,000 people by clicking buttons, right? It has to be a one-to-one. We removed that back when the regulation came out or went into effect earlier I think it was either end of 23 or early of 24, we removed that. Now the regulation around texting is they have to opt in and you have to give them an option to opt out. So we built that in. That is probably the most risk exposure we are comfortable with. One-off texting, but we removed all of that. And I don't know, again, I don't know what the future holds, and I don't know if we'll ever have AI, conversational AI built into our platform. I don't see it right now just because of all the things that I'm concerned about in that world. But government's not going to come in and say, hey, billions, you can never automate task management. So every time a listing happens, you trigger tasks. Like, they're not ever going to touch that, right? But that's an extreme time saver for the people on your team doing that.
For sure. And I didn't want to gloss over that, as I said in the intro, you also have your own podcast. And you're very passionate about this team lead talks. And what drove you to podcasting, and what type of results have you gotten from it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea behind it was to just get out there in the world and talk to people. Team lead talks, just like it says in the name, is I interview team leaders across the United States and Canada about how they got started. Kind of like the same conversation we're having about how we both started as entrepreneurs and where we wound up where we are today. I meet with the team leader and say, how'd you get into real estate? Why do you want to build a team? How did you build your team? How is it structured? What are lessons learned? Where are you finding, efficiencies? What are your wins? What are your losses? And the goal, Ahmad, with that is just, if a listener can pick up one piece of info that could move their needle in the right direction, that's all we really care about. If there's 5 pieces, even better. But there are people who might want to build a team that are a little, gun shy or just don't know what to do. So if they stumble upon our podcast for any reason, they can hear from, I don't know, I think we have like 30, 40 episodes out right now, with like about 10 or 20 more coming this year down the line. They can listen and pick up them something, and it can help them. And that's the end, resolve that we had with the Team Lead Talks podcast. And just, I like getting out there and hearing what's happening. We talk tech, we talk processes and systems. So all that knowledge I'm also learning I can take back for the Billions roadmap and say, hey, I interviewed 40 different team leaders. They're all saying the same thing. Why don't we think about what that could look like in Billions and how that could help them? And some of the, I'm lucky enough to have some of the people I've interviewed as Billions customers as well. So it's a networking thing, it's a learning thing, it's an education thing for me first and foremost. But first and foremost, it's for other people to learn what it's like, no filter, what it's like running and operating real estate teams.
I absolutely recommend people listening to go see it, because it's one of those things that is less talked to. You can't go to university and say, I only want to focus on leadership, or I only want to focus on team building, or I only want to, there's a big drive to that. And the common thread or the common notion is that when you do become a team leader, you're like, I feel alone at the top. I cannot talk to anybody. Nobody understands my situation. I have so much stress. I have so much pressure. But you you do have a community. You have someone that has similar experiences than you, or even harder experiences than you. And you're like, okay, if this person could solve it this way, I could solve it. And then you have software like yours where you incorporate these great feedbacks, I guess, or great initiatives that people are doing, and incorporate into software that's like a catch-all for the best practices in the industry, and then this is how you systematize it and go forward.
Yeah, there's no point, and this is true for even me when I was running my team, there's no point in trying to reinvent the real estate team wheel, right? Like, new stuff will come out and you'll find like cool new lead sources that work, or AI chatbots if you want, like new stuff will happen. But at the very foundation level, from an operational standpoint, it's relatively unchanged over time, right? Like, you have to spend money, you have to hire people, and you have to make more money than you're spending, or you're going to go out of business. So how can I do that in the most lean, most efficient, productive manner? You can go out and figure it out on your own and start building a team, or you can hire a coach that's built teams and expedite that learning from 10 years to 6 months or 12 months in a team building coaching program. There's no secret sauce to anything. There's no like, you look at these teams doing like thousands or hundreds of deals. They don't have like a hidden lead source that is yet to be talked about or discovered, right? If you really peel back the onion, which I get to do a lot because I talk to a lot of teams, it's like they have their shit together. They're not shooting from the hip trying to do and handle every single prospect or client different. They're doing the same thing over and over, then they're tweaking and iterating and making it better, making it better, making it better, making it better, and that snowballs.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'd love this conversation. It was super enlightening how to high performing teams work. Definitely want to keep in touch. People that have listened to this, I'll put in the description all of your social media, your podcast to follow you. And obviously, if you want to check out Billions as well, I want to finish the podcast by asking you what inspires you in the work you do today.
I honestly think, not to sound cliche, but my children. So I have 4 kids, and I grew up kind of seeing my dad work really hard. And my mom always used to say, no matter if it's easy or if it's hard, just do it. Like, oh, we have to do this, just do it, get it done. And I kind of want to instill that in my kids. So I'm working hard to show them I'm still educating myself, right? So I read every morning for like 30, 40 minutes, and they see me doing that. And that's kind of like, and I do push-ups every morning. Now my 8-year-old, 9-year-old son is doing push-ups with me. So I'm trying to just teach them habits to make their life better and easier and more fun. So that's really what drives me. And it's just fun meeting. I get to meet people all the time like you. I get to meet you and talk to you and learn a little bit about you and your company and who you are as a person. So it's like different all the time. So that's kind of what drives me.
Love it. Love it. Definitely see a lot of similarities. So thank you again for being on the podcast. And then don't forget to check Andrew's podcast out. It's great. As you saw in this was just like a 1% preview, but you definitely gave us with a lot of nuggets, books to read, challenges to do in our own life, think about our habits, and go out there and crush it and think big, which is what your name really draws me to. Is like think billions, not thousands. It's fun, but billions is better.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure being here.
Of course, of course.